Joining me now is Northlight Asset Management's Chief Investment Officer, Chris Zaccarelli. Chris, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Your reaction to all of this?
So, the news over the weekend with, Moody's downgrading the U.S.'s debt. It's,
Right.
Two of the three rating agencies had already done that. S&P did it back in 2011, so it's been 14 years. So on the one hand, it's a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction to the headlines. On the other hand, the issue is really important. The U.S. debt to GDP is around 100% now. Deficits have been running, too large for too long. It's really a wake-up call. It's a reminder to make sure that we attack the problem from both ends. We're going to need to raise our, the amount of money coming into the U.S. through raising our GDP, through tax cuts, through deregulation, and we've got to cut spending. It's really, really important. Both of those are critical. We need to cut our deficits. We need to start running surpluses, and we need to start paying down some of that debt. It's unsustainable to keep going in the path we've been going.
Well, look, that's why in this reconciliation package is raising the debt ceiling by $5 trillion. And that has, some people at odds. I mean, Moody's downgrades the U.S. credit rating, and everybody thinks that this is new information. Moody's went from, AAA to now AA1, down from AAA over the rising debt. They're specifically zeroing in on annual fiscal deficits and growing interest costs. We're waiting for Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent to tell us when the so-called X date is. Is it August? Is it September? That's why they need to get this bill over the finish line by July 4th, because the X date is looming. But the Treasury Secretary dismissed some of the worry over the weekend. Watch this. Here's Scott Bessent.
First of all, I think that Moody's is a lagging indicator. I think that's what everyone thinks of credit agencies. And we didn't get here in the past 100 days. It's the Biden administration and the spending that we have seen over the past 4 years. We inherited 6.7% deficit to GDP, the highest when we weren't in a recession, not in a war, and we are determined to bring the spending down and grow the economy.
So let's get into this. I mean, Chris, what about Liz's point? I mean, President Trump's agenda is all about growth. When you start factoring in the impact of deregulation, factor in the impact of extending these tax cuts, do we not get an accelerated growth story? Doesn't that pay for some of this?
Yes, absolutely. And of course, growth is the most important component. We've got to do both. We've got to cut spending. We've talked about it. There's a lot of areas where we can do that. There's a lot of negative headlines about DOGE and pushing back on what they're trying to do. But that's exactly what needs to happen. You've got to begin cutting spending where you can, and then raising the growth potential of the United States is critical. We can grow our way out of this as long as we continue to cut spending in addition to that, and we're smart with what we do with our policies. Absolutely. Deregulation can unleash massive types of investment, and ultimately it's certainty that companies are looking for. So if we can get a lot of the trade deals done, it was great to see what happened with the UK. It sounds like we're making some progress with China. Treasury Secretary Bessent is doing an amazing job. He's doing such a good job with all that's put on his plate. If we can get some certainty down, we can get things going on the growth side of things. That's ultimately what's going to help us grow our way out of this problem. Just look at Q1 earnings. We're up 13.6% year over year in terms of the S&P 500 earnings from last year. That's a fantastic growth story. You don't hear a lot of people talking about how much earnings have been up in the past quarter. So there are a lot of good stories out there. You just need to make sure you're looking for them, because ultimately it's a confidence game. We need to get confidence back in the U.S. economy, get investors confident, and let's start growing our way out of this problem.
Right. We'll leave it there. Good to see you, Chris. Thank you. Chris Zaccarelli joining us on Markets this morning. Stay with us. Quick break, and we'll be right back.